Book 3, The Mechanic's Muse, a short and steamy curvy girl romance by Everly True. A Coral Bay short romance series. Chapter 1, Stiletto Trouble and Spark Plugs. Ruby Lane did not have roadside emergencies, but there she was, stranded in the sweltering Carolina heat, leaning against her rose gold SUV in a designer crop top, filming an "This is fine" Instagram story while sweat trickled down her back. Welcome to Coral Bay, where the sunsets were gorgeous, the Wi-Fi was trash, and the only thing flatter than her tire was her mood. She was supposed to be 3 hours into a weekend content shoot. Instead, she had no signal, no AAA, and no clue how to change a tire without breaking a nail. That's when the rumble of a pickup truck pulled over. Enter, tall, broad, sun-drenched. The man who stepped out was all forearms, faded jeans, and grease smudged across his jaw like he forgot to care. He squinted at her like she was an alien in rhinestones. "Need a hand, princess?" Ruby bristled. "I prefer queen. But yes, my tire's toast. I was hoping for roadside assistance, not a cowboy fantasy." He smirked, and it did dangerous things to her brain. "Name's Evan. I run the shop down on Maple. I fix cars, not egos, but I'll take a look." She crossed her arms, partly to look annoyed, mostly to keep from fanning herself. 10 minutes later, her spare was on, but the real problem wasn't the flat. It was the growing awareness between them. The way he handed her a water bottle with one brow cocked. The way her fingers grazed his when she took it. The way neither of them moved for a second too long. "You're not from around here," he said, "and you're not used to women who wear heels to pump gas." He grinned. "Not since prom." Chapter 2, Dirty Hands, Cleaner Intentions. Ruby didn't mean to come back the next day. She just wanted to thank him. Maybe flirt a little. Maybe see what those forearms looked like without the grease. But when she strolled into Cruz Auto Repair, heels clicking against concrete, she wasn't expecting the way his expression shifted, from amused to heated. "Didn't peg you for the follow-up type," Evan said, wiping oil off his hands with a rag that had clearly seen better days. "I'm full of surprises." She leaned on the counter. "Besides, you scratched my rim." "You scratched your rim parking like a maniac. I saved your ass." "True. So, how do I say thanks?" The heat between them thickened like summer air before a thunderstorm. She was glitter and gloss. He was grit and torque wrenches. But something about him grounded her, and something about her clearly had him off balance. "You hungry?" he asked, voice low and rough. "There's a taco truck out back. Best in Coral Bay." They ate on the tailgate of his truck. She told him about building her brand after a nasty breakup, and a marketing job that sucked the soul out of her. He told her about staying in town to run the shop after his dad passed. Later, back at the garage, Ruby leaned against the workbench, her lips parted in a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The low hum of the overhead light buzzed above them, but it was the heat in the room that made her dizzy. Or maybe that was just him. Evan stood a few feet away, watching her like a man trying to decide if he should cross a line he couldn't uncross. She didn't wait. She tipped her chin up, challenging, inviting. He stepped between her legs, hands braced on either side of her thighs, his body radiating heat. "You sure about this?" he asked, voice low and rough. She reached for his shirt, fingers curling into the soft fabric. "You asking, or hoping I'll say yes?" His breath hitched. That was enough. The kiss was nothing like she expected. Raw and consuming. His mouth crushed against hers, and her hands flew to his shoulders, gripping tight. He tasted like heat and stubbornness, a little salt and something that could easily become addiction. When he slid his hands along her thighs, her breath caught. The feel of his palms on her skin was electric, firm, claiming. Her legs parted instinctively, and when his hips pressed against hers, she couldn't stop the soft sound that escaped her throat at the feel of him. Her body reacted before her brain could catch up. Her thighs tightened around his waist, pulling him closer, anchoring him to her like she couldn't bear another inch of space between them. He hoisted her up onto the bench without a word, like it was the most natural thing in the world, like she belonged there. His scent hit her. Motor oil, pine, and something warm beneath it all. Something that felt like safety and danger at the same time. She traced the edge of his jaw with her fingers, lips brushing against his in a whisper of contact. He slid his hands beneath the hem of her crop top, and she arched into him, a soft gasp leaving her lips. "Don't stop," she whispered, and he didn't. Chapter 3. Too real, too fast. Morning crept through the garage apartment like a secret. Soft, golden, uninvited. Ruby blinked awake to the weight of a heavy arm slung across her waist. Evan's breath brushed the back of her neck, slow and steady, his chest pressed against her spine. His body was heat and strength, anchoring her to the moment. His undershirt hung loose on her curves, the hem brushing the tops of her thighs. The fabric still smelled like him. Soap, cedar, a faint trace of motor oil that somehow felt comforting now. She shifted, just enough for his lips to graze her shoulder. "You always smell like trouble," he murmured, voice rough from sleep. She smiled into the pillow. "And you always sound like a dare." He kissed the back of her neck once, lazy but lingering. And for a breath she thought, maybe this could be something real. Coffee brewed somewhere behind him, filling the air with warmth. He handed her a mug without asking how she liked it. Somehow, he already knew. They talked about nothing, her shoes scattered across his floor, his cat that refused to come inside, the sound of waves through the cracked window. When she stood to leave, he tugged her back by the hem of his shirt. "You're running again." She hesitated, smiling. "Just a quick stop by the house. I've got to check something." It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. Outside, the sunlight hit her phone, lighting up a storm of notifications. Emails, calls, a sponsorship offer too good to ignore. LA 3 weeks. Big money, bigger exposure. Her pulse spiked, career instincts warring with the part of her that wanted to climb back into bed and stay there. She told herself she'd explain it to him later, that he will understand. But small towns don't keep secrets for long. When she walked into the shop that evening, he was waiting, grease on his hands, jaw tight. "You're leaving?" She flinched. "It's just work, Evan. A few weeks." He shook his head. "And you didn't think that mattered?" "It's who I am. This is what I've worked for." "No," he said quietly. "What you've worked for is attention. What you deserve is something real." His words stung because they weren't cruel. They were true. She swallowed hard. "I'm not ghosting you. I'm just a little scared." He met her eyes, pain and something softer hiding there. "Yeah, me too." She boarded the flight. She filmed the campaign. She smiled into every camera. But each reel felt hollow. Every caption made her feel a little less alive. Because nothing about the LA skyline compared to the way Coral Bay's sunsets looked reflected in his eyes. 3 weeks later, she came back. No fanfare, no filters. Just her and her heart, finally quiet. She walked into the shop, unannounced heels clicking, curves swaying, and nerves steadying with each step. Evan looked up from under the hood of a truck, surprise flickering to something different. Something like relief. "You came back." She smiled. "Told you I was full of surprises." He wiped his hands on a rag, leaving faint smudges on his forearms. She reached for him anyway, fingers curling around his collar. The kiss that followed wasn't an apology or a reunion. It was a choice. Not the glamorous kind that wins followers. The kind that makes a woman finally feel seen. Epilogue. Grease, glitter, and gossip. 6 Sundays later, Ruby stood at the Coral Bay Women's Circle, balancing a tray of cupcakes in the Sweetheart Bakery, the little seaside bakery that had somehow become the Women's Circle unofficial meeting spot and gossip hub. Across the room, Tessa and Dean were laughing near the window, sunlight catching on the lens of his camera. Someone had brought flowers, someone else had brought wine, and Ruby realized that Coral Bay had a funny way of pulling people together, right when they needed it most. She was pinning a flyer for the upcoming Fix It and Flaunt It car clinic when a low hum of whispers rolled through the group. The door opened, and a tall woman with a honey-smooth voice and a no-nonsense stride walked in, wearing a fitted denim jacket and the kind of confidence that made people turn their heads. "Who's that?" Ruby asked curiously. "Savannah Quinn," Tessa said softly. "She runs Dalton's, the whiskey bar by the pier." Ruby raised a brow, intrigued. "Looks like Coral Bay's about to get a little stronger, and a whole lot sweeter." The end and the beginning. Next up in Curves Ahead, Sweet Like Whiskey. A note from Everly True. Thank you for spending your evening in Coral Bay. Thanks for listening to the Mechanic's Muse. If you love this curvy, steamy small-town romance, you can grab a copy of the ebook on Amazon. Subscribe for weekly romance audiobooks and short reads. I post new stories every week. Follow Lavara Romance on Facebook. Follow Lavara Romance on Instagram. Also by Everly True. Sweet Like Whiskey. Curves Ahead number 4. The Fireman's Undoing. Curves Ahead number 5.